What's going on, my peeps? Let's break down the Epstein files. Let's delve into the hidden, esoteric meaning of the Epstein files and what I've been doing, what I been doing for the last 30 plus years. Got my hot tea going here. It's interesting. First of all, why did they come out now? Out of all the times that they could have released or came out with the so-called disclosure project, revealing, explaining, illuminating, simplify what's going on inside of the Epstein files, why now? Why February? Well, February is what? Black History Month. So has anybody said anything about Black history? Especially black folks. We all talking about Epstein. So what is the Epstein files really all about? Well, it's really about power from the perspective of understanding power, fame, money, sex. That's the Epstein files. So what I've been talking about for 30 years, power, fame, money, sex. That's what everything is about in this world. Everything is about, power, fame, money, and sex. And the inability for us to see the forest for the trees. That just simply means when we talk about the Epstein files, movies, the elite, Hollywood, what I do for a living, my calling, my destiny, my dear career is what? It's back down that sign. Reveal, explain, illuminate, and simplify. Truth. Replacing error with truth. So I'm a truthologist. That's what I do for a living. That's my calling, though. I didn't go to school. I didn't do anything. In fact, I've been trying to avoid it. I've been talking in circles because this stuff gets you banned off of. You don't make no money doing this. So if you really want to make money, if you're in this thing for money, then you don't want to do what I do. If you really trying to get paid, then you want to delve into something other than talking about the hidden agenda of the dominant culture, how this universe works. So if you're interested in really making money, don't do what I do. Don't expose hidden esoteric information. That's the Epstein files. Sex, power, money, and fame. How do you get sex, power, money, and fame? How do you use sex, power, money, and fame? That's the Epstein files. That's what I do for a living. That's what I've been doing for 30 years. That's why most of my stuff has been banned. I had over 5,000 shows, about 30 books deleted, banned. Thankfully, I had backups for a lot of the books, but a lot of the audios from my old stuff, yeah, my YouTube channels, I didn't have backup for that. Because again, that was like way back in the day when I was first starting. This stuff that's inside of the Epstein files is old news. It's interesting that people are getting their panties in the water, especially black folks. It's very interesting that this is mainstream news. It's in all of the movies. All of the people that I talk to, the Zen Garcias of the world, the Billy Carsons, David Blairs, the people that really go behind the curtain. And I remember, this is a calling, though. So I'm not trying to gaslight anybody. I'm not trying to make you feel bad if that's not your cup of tea. It's not. I wouldn't be doing this either if I wasn't called to do it. I can just see through patterns. I'm a pattern recognition specialist. Not by school, by birth. I'm also an energy reader. So I can read energy by birth. Some people are energy vampires by birth. These people are energy vampires. They don't generate their own chi. So they got to use yours. So everything is about sex, power, money, and fame. And the best way to get sex, power, money, and fame is through specific ancient rituals. Very, very specific ancient routines. The word ritual is just another word for routine. It's another word for a habit. It's just another word again for what we call discipline or destiny. That's why I do discipline or destiny reports, to get you out of and to keep you from being manipulated by the dominant culture's algorithm. Because 99.999% of the Negroes that I know, they dumb as a box of rocks. It ain't their fault though. It's not their fault that they can't see the forest for the trees. They're not designed by God to see the forest for the trees. There are certain people that have been gifted, anointed, called to recognize adrenochrome, to recognize negative habit patterns, to recognize, again, the dominant culture's narrative that uses, again, repetitions or repetition to control the reticular activating system, so that you cannot and you will not be able to recognize the devil when he shows up, if there's such a thing. Because the devil, again, comes in pleasing raiment in the form of sex, power, money, and fame. What Negro do you know that will pass up sex, power, money, and fame? I'm asking for a friend. Okay, no, I'm not. I know 0 Negroes, myself included, that will pass up sex, power, money, and fame. That's the devil. That's the Epstein files. Everything that they did and do is about sex, power, money, and fame. But it's based upon Molech. It's based upon Santa. Because Santa is an anagram for Satan. That's why during Christmas, which represents Christos, which represents Christen, which represents the adrenochrome, which represents serpentine power, just like it says in Earth, Wind, and Fire. Remember the group Earth, Wind, and Fire? Man, them Negroes were 1,000 years before their time. There's 0 Negroes that's aware of the. Go back and listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire. Look at the lyrics of some of the songs in Earth, Wind, and Power. Serpentine fire. What are they talking? I wrote a whole book, did a 7-hour series on the Kundalini and the Kunda buffer. That's Epstein. Look at the word Epstein, Stein. Just look it up. Just go to ChatGPT, man. Type it in. What is the hidden esoteric meaning of the name Ep? Like Epi, Steen, or Stein. Look it up. Don't believe me? I'm just a country boy from Texas. But you see, the average Negro cannot see the forest for the trees, but it's not his fault. It's not his fault. Because remember, this is a 5-fold ministry, bro. So there are certain people that are called and gifted to recognize patterns. I just happen to be one of them. Everybody that's born in the month of September, they have this ability to understand septum. That we have a septor. That's what septum means. Negro, it means 7. It means complete. It's a gift. It's a calling. But every Negro that I know, do you know anybody born in September that has the ability to recognize patterns and actually see the forest for the trees and speak on it? I know a lot of Negroes that know it, but they ain't going to say shit because they understand that they're going to get demonized, they're going to get ostracized, they ain't going to get invited to those family picnics. They're going to be just like me. You're going to be the black sheep of your family, bro. Do you think, honestly, do you think people want to hang around with people who call them on their dirt just by their presence, just by showing up? Do you notice, have you seen the stuff that I post? Have you saw some of the books that I've written? Them things should be, everything that I do should be flying off the shit. There should be 5,000 people listening to this Facebook Live. Where they at? They chasing money. They chasing power. They chasing sex. And they chasing fame. Nigga, if you really want them sex, power, money, and fame, I've had all of that. If you really want it, then you do what Epstein do. You do what they do. That's the only way to get it. The only way, because remember, this is their system. This is a harmonious arrangement that was created by the Cosmic Raptor that talks about in the Apocrypha of John. One of the first books that I wrote, now remember, this is what this is all about. The whole Epstein files is nothing but about the Cosmic Raptor. Let me pull this up for you, man. Let's break down what's going on so we can get back to Black History Month. Because this is purposely, it purposely came out during the month of September, during the month of February, which is the month of Black History. Even though we don't have a month, we got the whole year. But that's another study for another time. But the whole point, everything is done by the numbers. This is murder by numbers. Google that. Murder by numbers. Y'all remember your boy came out with Murder Inc.? Okay, yeah, no study for another time. So the word theologian. Remember this, the system, Epstein, they control money. They control power. They control fame. And they use sex. Sex is the most powerful thing on the planet. That's why it's demonized. That's why the average Negro is afraid of and he's scared of, and they Negroes never talk about sex. Do you understand the most powerful thing on the planet? If you combine, I don't know if I should even break this down for you, man. I've done many books. I've got it inside of my book, The Seven Seals of Satan. Number one is sex. Because sex is what? Sex is when you take a ink pen and you take a piece of paper. This is the penis. This is the punani. And you put the pen to the paper. Habakkuk 2:2. Nigga, you're the most powerful mother on the planet. Why y'all think I got 1,000 books? But the devil is not stupid. So everything I'm telling you happened to me when I was 5, 6, 7, 8. I've been doing this automatically. I just couldn't figure out how come I was doing it. Why was it so easy for me and nobody else was doing it? So I had to ask myself, nobody in my family was as deviant as I was. I'm the black sheep of the family, remember? Because I asked questions. Remember we talked about yesterday the 7 levels of consciousness? And every black person I know is on level 2, maybe 3. Y'all remember level 1? You don't question nothing, bro. You do what you told. You shut up and you do what you told. Not you personally, but you know. That is Epstein. So Epstein, power, sex, money, fame. Okay, how do you control power, sex, money, and fame? You do that through rituals. Rituals, they use sigils. They use signs, they use symbols, and they use religion. They use theologians. Now let's break this down. Now, going through some of the 1000 really quickly. Man, my lens looks a little fuzzy. Let me get something to wipe it down really quickly before we get this party popping. So that way you guys can, I just want to give you just a little bit, just a little taste. I think that's the great Dr. Span. What's going on, Dr. Span? How's my boy, the great Dr. Jerome Span? Hopefully, man, I know he's going to come out. I'm looking for a rag. He's going to come out with flying colors like he always do. Then we'll be able to hook up with you guys in March. Hopefully we can hook up in March and, go out and do some sightseeing while we're in Georgia. I got to get my rag. And so we're going to break this down so we can understand why this is so paramount. Because the enemy, whoever the enemy is, we don't know who the enemy is, but whoever the enemy is, sorry about that. Write my camera down. The enemy uses God and low genes. So everything about the Epstein files and everything that's about what's going on in the world today is about making sure that you stay on a low frequency. They cannot control you if you think for yourself. Remember what we talked about yesterday, man, with those 7 levels. They can't do nothing with people like me, Dr. Span, people that think for themselves. Because we are, whoops, sorry about that. Trying to flip over my camera. There we go. So we think for ourselves. That simply means we just ask questions. Just simple stuff. We ain't going to disrespect nobody, right, Dr. Span? We're just going to, if we disagree, if we agree to disagree, we're just going to keep it moving. We're going to keep it moving. So the word theo means God, and then a low jinn. Now, jinns were fire beings. It's the logos. So I want to keep your genes. I want to make sure that the mitochondrial DNA is not producing ATP and ATP. Remember, everything on this planet is about high energy. So the only way to make sure that your energy is not high, that's why a lot of melanated people have kidney issues, because the nephrons that pumps blood through the kidneys and the capillaries, they are unable to oscillate and vibrate if your chi and your energy is low. If your breath deep nostril breathing, if you don't do enough deep nostril breathing to move the blood through the capillaries and then through what they call those very, very small nephrons, which is like the word nephilim, which is inside of the kidneys, to filter out the blood. So these are the keepers of logos, to make sure your energy level, your blood is not pumping in a very, very, very oxygenated state. That's their job. Make sure that you get no oxygen into the blood. Theologians. Now, theologians, and it goes a lot deeper than that. That's just one of the book. The main book that I want to talk about that exposes everything that the Epstein, everything that the Epstein files are talking about is just look at what they're doing. Look at what they do. This is Molech worship. Now, the average out of Keelan, we don't know nothing about Molech. We wasn't taught. We wasn't trained. We don't understand Molech. We don't know that God called Abraham and he told him to leave Ur. And so we don't really understand how the Old Testament works. And it's not that we should understand how the Old Testament works, but they do. So they operate on a different system. Their system is based upon, again, blood, because they know the life of the flesh is in the blood. So they're going to attack you. That's why they do blood sacrifices. That's why they do blood oaths. That's why they get into blood brothers. Everything is about blood because they understand blood magic, which is sigil magic. And so that's what they use. They use a system that is ancient, and this system oscillates and vibrates by using structured alchemy and structure. So there's a specific structure that establishes and holds a very low emotional state. So this is trauma-induced mind control. So everything is about making sure that you are in a traumatic event so that way your soul is fractured and you are departmentalized, and it's easier for me to control you. So I'm going to get you addicted. I'll make sure that you are in a state of fear, that you're stressed out, that you are looking up to people. And then we're going to reverse your spin on your chakra. And the only way to reverse your chakra so that way everything is in reverse is through anal penetration. We talked about what happens because you got the coccyx bone. Again, Google this, look it up. And if you insert something into the anal cavity, it reverses your chakra spin. This is all ancient. This is all ancient ritual magic. This has to do with over understanding signs and symbols, because that controls, again, your sodium and potassium using sodomy. So the number one weapon that the enemy uses, because the enemy understands what happens to you when something hits the coccyx bones or the sacrum or the most holy place or the sacral or sacrum pump that's inside of the tailbone. So if you look at the human anatomy, that's what I've been saying for 30 plus years. The body is the Bible, and the Bible is the body. But now people are reading and seeing this stuff that's happening, because what happens, they kill animals in a state of fear, because that releases cortisol and cortisone and adrenaline into the blood, which creates a substance called adrenochrome. And they feed off of that adrenochrome. They use that. And then they get into cannibalism, because cannibalism. Because Cainism is gainism or capitalism. So nobody talks about Sethism, which is why I created the Sethian Academy. Because I haven't found a melanated preacher or teacher who shares informing about Seth. So we know about Cain and Abel, but Cain slew able. So who and what system replaced Abel? Seth. But I don't know a Negro that knows anything about Seth. Now we know and we pursue, because this whole world, this is a harmonious arrangement that's under the control of the Cosmogrator. Now the Cosmogrator is found in Ephesians chapter 6. He's the prince that's over the power of the air. So you can pull, according to the book The Vacuum by the great Tom Bearden, and again, you want to Google it and research Tom Bearden, The Vacuum. They can pull unlimited energy out of 1 square inch of space. So all you need is 1 square inch, one little block of space. It's like you can light up an entire city. It's like an atomic bomb. 1 square inch. So they understand alchemy. They use math, they use music, and they use language. That's why they control the music industry. That's why, how many mathematicians that you know that are melanated that are in positions of power? I know a lot of melanated mathematicians. I know a lot of melanated musicians. And I know a lot of melanated people who can speak multiple languages. But none of them are in positions of power. None of them control systems of distribution. Look at the current political structure and climate. How many melanated individuals are in positions or centers of distribution? So the dominant culture is about sex, power, money, and fame. That's what this is about. Sex, power, money, and fame. Because that is what keeps you in line. So the dominant culture is dominant because they weave a web and keep us intoxicated. So we are intoxicated by ignorance because ignorance is intoxicating. So they have created this web of ignorance. This is thought-induced mind control. So this whole world, the whole world that we live in, is under the spell of the Cosmogrator. And I'll talk about this out of the book, The Cosmogrator. So every book that I've written really is about the Disclosure Project and everything that they are now talking about inside of the Epstein files. It is not new for me. It's new for a lot of people that I talk to, but they have not been in this space for 30 plus years. So when you understand that it is ignorance that keeps us and keeps the brain induced, that creates what they call the halo effect. And this halo effect keeps you under the spell, under the influence, so that way you practice easy believism and you don't delve into the deeper aspects of life and godliness. You don't do what the Bible says in Hebrews chapter 6, verse 1, 2, and 3. So the mind is deceived, and if you said that the mind is deceived by false images, so your senses respond to these images. So your current state of consciousness is induced by false images created by the dominant culture. We just use that term. So salvation is the state of mind growing out of knowledge of the truth, rather than the mind growing out of ignorance that's induced by the 5 senses. So if you go through what I talk about, this is what we call thinking. And it gets into the mode of thinking. I break all of this down inside of, again, this is just one of the 1,000 books. It's only $1 per book. That's why I put all of this stuff together. Because after these 30 plus years of research and all this stuff, I had no idea. I knew they had been talking about it. I didn't think they was going to actually do it. I did not think these good old boys were going to actually disclose. And notice it is a partial disclosure as well of what's going on and what's inside of Epstein Island. Notice all of the alphabet soups. Notice all of the organizations that's going to be, if they come up with everything, you will find that, again, Child Protective Services, everyday care, anything to do with children is used by the dominant culture as a gateway or a portal by which to process and get more children, so that way they can introduce them into this trauma-induced mind control, because it's better to get them at a younger age. So the same thing that happened to me, they do to other people. And the only way that I got out is by the grace and mercy of God. My mom died when I was young. That snapped me out of it, because the lady that was doing remember that takes 5 things to wash the brain. And we were exposed to all 5, as most melanated people are, because the church uses, unknowingly, most preachers don't know, that when they teach and they preach and they do that, that's called diction. That's one of the most important things for mind control. Your pace, your rhythm creates a hypnotic state in the brain. That's why worship comes before the word. So everything is done. That's why they tell you, hey, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you can only do Jehovah's Witness stuff. You can't do Mormons. You can't read their stuff. So they isolate and they separate, and you can only read their dogma. You cannot read anything that challenges. So what I do, 99.99% of melanated people don't do. I wake up every morning and I try to find information that proves what I believe, what I know, wrong. I'm not trying to prove myself right. I'm trying to find somebody. That's why I got that 20K reward out there to the Negro or the non-Negro that can prove me wrong. So for 20 plus years, I ain't ran across nobody that can prove me wrong in the areas of wealth, health, wisdom, and relationship. Because it's not about being right or wrong. It's about being one with source, understanding universal spiritual laws. They use the opposite system because they use fear. They use trauma-induced mind control. And they don't disclose. So they keep you in the dark. Because if they, whoever they are, if they were on the up and up, they would lay out all the cards and let you choose. They would not try to limit, oh, we want to protect you. Now, bro, I'm a grown man. I don't need you to decide for me whether or not I need to take this COVID-19. I don't need you to make decisions for me. I can make decisions for myself. If I choose not to take the flu shot, if I choose to drive off the cliff, if I choose to do something that's going to hurt me, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else, you should just step out of the way and say, okay, we told you. If you still want to do it, do you, boo. But the system says, we smarter than you. We know better than you. And so let's go deeper down the rabbit trail. What is the causality of this reality? There is a lineage that really can trace their heritage back through what we call blood, because life of the flesh is in the blood. So they believe it's their birthright to exercise rulership and authority over you. That's their belief, because it's based upon their genetic profile that can be traced back all the way to those who from heaven who came down to earth and saw the daughters of men. So there's a group of people, we call them the 1%, some people call them the Illuminati, you can call it whatever you want to call them. But they believe, the Merovingians, they literally believe that they are here to dominate you. They literally believe it is their birthright. They literally believe, and I'll talk about this inside of this book, no, it's backwards, but it's called Enochim. They really believe that they have the language, that they have math, music, and language skills that was given to them by God to exercise power and authority over you. They literally believe that you are worthless, well done, that you are what they call goyim. Goyim is just another word for pig. They literally believe that. And it's based upon a partial truth. Because when you get into the Septuagint, And you get into Genesis 6:4, because that's the only way it's mentioned inside of the traditional Bible. But if you read the book of Enoch, if you read the Nag Hammadi text, if you read the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you read all of like the Codex Gigas or the Enio Elish, all of the texts that I read, it really breaks it down and it explains where they get their belief system from. So when you're talking to somebody who literally believes that they are genetically superior than you, they literally believe that they are genetic. They literally believe that they don't see nothing wrong with what they're doing. That they don't understand why us normal people have a problem with them, doing some of the stuff that I don't even want to like. Yeah. All of the cannibalism, all of the, sexual deviant activities with children, all the kidnapping, all of the, drinking of blood, all of the vampiric activities, all of the ceremonial type activities that require someone, like in the movie Dr. Sleep, it has to be done painfully and it has to be done slow to extract as much pain and a much adrenochrome out of you to empower them. They literally believe. If you go back and you look at Moloch, he was a big statue, and they would turn his hands red and then lay the baby up on him. The baby would just... I talk about this inside of my book, Vatican Control. They literally believe that smell. So why does, even this is in the Bible, even with communion, what is communion? Do y'all want to know the truth, or you want to stick with King James? Why do they do the same thing that you do during communion? I'm asking for a friend. I don't know. Okay, yeah, I do. So if you really serious, you need to get this book, Vatican Control. This is what everything that they do is in this book. Because everything that you've been taught is a lie. Not you personally, though. People, This is the key that opens the 5-pointed star. That's the Vatican. That's the key. And that's the keyhole. That's Saturnalia. That's the black hole sun. That is an anagram. It's also the Pentateuch. It's also a pentagram. Man, why does the Vatican have thousands of ancient texts hidden from the general public? Why are we underneath what is called a Elohim deception? That's what this is all about. So all of the files and all of the stuff that they're talking about, they're literally just talking about all of this stuff that really breaks down the mentality of that, let's just call the 1%. They have a different mentality than we do. So they create a different reality. They come from and they believe a whole different. They're not, and I joke around with the wife all the time because a lot of them are, old blood. And I talk about the difference between understanding when the Bible talks about iron and clay. Some people are hemoglobin. Some people are hemocryon. Some people are iron. Some people are copper. They call the blue bloods. So that's what we are talking about. What's going on with the disclosure? Well, first of all, why are they coming out with it in February? How come they didn't come out with it in January? They've had the files with Trump's first term. Why they wait till February of 2026 to come out with the disclosure? Because it's all about a distraction. Because they do everything here on this earth is paint by numbers. They understand numerology. They understand biblical alphanumerics. They understand theomathematics. They understand grimoire or grimoria. They understand grammatus. They understand the Kabbalah. So they over and understand how to create an incantation. This incantation leads to indoctrination. So the incarnation is put into incarceration based upon the incantation. So we, average black folks, we just quote scriptures. We just go to church on Sunday and praise Jesus, and we go home and we go out to eat. So we don't know shit about the incantation that's placed over us. Everything that they say is an algorithm. They put their words into a specific order to provoke and to invoke a specific response. They, whoever they are, they don't do nothing if it doesn't line up with the stars to affect your genie or the genes. That's what they do. They understand that Christ is eternal within the body. They also understand that they understand the difference between the Christos and the Christos, the twin flames. So they are in a supreme positioned us because they're using, let's use the word angel magic for lack of a better term. Whoops, sorry about that. They're using a higher vibrational tone, frequency, wave, verb, and vibration. Okay, what does that mean in English? They're using epigenetics. Okay, what does that mean? So what is epigenetics? Well, they get into Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. They get into Joe Dispenza's work. They get into over and understand that you and I, we have genes. These genes are controlled by thoughts or words or frequencies or waves or vibrations. That's why you don't have the luxury of a negative thought. The Bible talks about vain babbling. They understand how to program your genes. That's what they're doing. Even when they do something good, they're doing something bad. They only know power, sex, fame, and money. That's it. Everything they do is for those four things. And the fifth thing is end of life, to extrapolate your chi, your energy, death. So that way your energy can be recycled and they can use it again. So it's all about controlling the genie and the genes. You have this treasure hidden in earthen vessels. So why do they give babies shots as soon as they come in the womb? Why do you have a birth certificate? Why do they take the baby's foot and they put it on parchment? First thing you do, you put your baby's footprint. The baby is a week old, if that. They put ink and they put the ink onto paper to trap the baby's soul on parchment, which talks about it inside of a paper bull. Then they give the baby a birth certificate. It is a certificate of live birth. And that certificate is placed on the stock exchange. So that way you become chattel. Cattle. So this is all about controlling your chi. This is maritime law. Now this is way above, that's with our social security number. And I've talked about this way back in the 80s. When I was breaking this down in the 80s. This is 2026. I've been talking about this since 1980. 1980 is when I started talking about how they control your chi. How they use the Torah to control your Taurus. And now how they use Horus to make a whore out of us. Whores. Spiritual adultery. A spiritual prostitute. So you jump from teaching to teaching to teaching to teaching that you become a spiritual prostitute. You don't even know. I mean, not you personally, but people don't. That's their system. So I don't care what system you got. The Bible says there's none righteous, no, not one. We all have fallen short. Everything on this planet is designed to keep you trapped in Groundhog Day. So no matter how great your system is, it's still flawed. Because your system was given to you by the Antichrist. So this is nothing but brainwave entrainment. This is how the elite, what do they use? Technology and electronics. We talked about this when we talked about the WBAN wide body area network. And I break it down inside of this book. All the AI stuff, this book was written out way before AI came out. So I put it in this book. I told you way before artificial intelligence. I told you way back before they came out with HARP that whoever controls the weather controls whether or not you are successful. It's the weather. And whoever controls or whoever uses witchcraft, they determine which craft you use. Witchcraft means witchcraft. Your craft is your skill. So they determine your destiny, your purpose using witchcraft. Witchcraft simply means I'm going to determine what your purpose is. Negro, you think you went into politics. You think you went into construction. You think you became a mechanic. You think that you became a doctor. You think you became a lawyer. Unless you are using your diaconate, Negro, you are fulfilling their destiny because they use witchcraft on you. Witchcraft means witchcraft. W-H-I-C-H. Witchcraft. That's why at every reward show, what do they get up? They say, I thank God for my craft. Did y'all see the Grammys? How many times y'all watch the NFL or sports? And after the game, what do they say? Craft. They thank God for their craft. Witchcraft. And so that's what it's talking about, witchcraft. But it's your skill. Which skill? Everybody has a skill. We all have a talent. The only question is, where'd you get your talent from? The Bible says that your gift will make room for you and take you before kings. Which gift? Which gift? Now, my book that I wrote many, many moons ago that breaks down the Cosmogrator. I can find that one. I should have took it out earlier. I know I got it over here somewhere. Where's it at? The reason why this is so important, I'm going to wrap up today's message with the smoking gun from the perspective of, man, it is disheartening. That's why this knowledge is not, that's why I don't really just come all out. Because everybody's not supposed to know this stuff. This will vex your spirit. It talks about a vexation of spirit, vanities of vanity. King Solomon talks about it. With an increase of knowledge, there's an increase of sorrow. There's some stuff you just don't want to know. Right. Like the word, certain things it's just better not to know. Because once you know it, you can't unknow it. Once you see it, you can't not see it. You can't unsee it. Once the brain is exposed, it can't shrink back. Here we go. If you don't get any book, you should get this one. Now, 1,000 books for $1,000. 4 payments of $250. You can put on auto pay. We do 1 book per day, or you do 7 per week, 30 per month, $365 per year at the $1 a day. So $1 a day keeps low vibration away. $1 a day exposes Epstein's files. Because it's interesting, people are talking about what they're doing. What's the purpose of why? So why are they doing that? Why are they cannibals? Why are they drinking blood? Why are they, sexually assaulting children? Why are they torturing children? Why are they kidnapping children? Why? What's the end game? They are serving. They're worshiping. They're giving energy to a foreign entity. Why? They believe that entity is their father. They are descendants. Their bloodline can be traced back. So they are recruiting. They are using you for your chi. Look at the average out of keep it on. They use you for your culture. They don't want you, they want your culture. They would dance like you, dress like you, put their baggy pants, skinny jeans, whatever the black culture is doing, that culture is doing. They just don't invite you to the party unless you're on the dinner table. Unless you are entertaining. Unless you're serving. Wake up, Negro. The only time that you're invited to the party is if you are the dinner, if you are serving the dinner, or if you are entertaining while they are eating the dinner. That's it, Negro. You don't got a place at the table. You ever ask yourself why indigenous people around the world, since the beginning of time, even from Nibiru, this is all inside this book. I explain the beginning inside of this book, based upon the Samaritan text and based upon the Apocrypha of John. You can go Google Apocrypha of John. You can Google Emil Elish. You can Google Samaritan text. You can Google the Nag Hammadi text. You can Google and read the Dead Sea Scrolls for free right now. Then, when you want to make all of this stuff make sense, pick up the 1000 for 1000, where I break this stuff down so that way it can be easily understood, but more importantly, you can implement it. Because when you understand their system of oppress, depress, recess, possess, when you truly understand this, oh, bruh, you can't be mind controlled no more. So, oppression means cruel, harsh, unjust treatment. No mother beat should oppress you, including you. Most Negroes are depressed because they're in a state of recess or a recession. That recession, that depression comes from oppression. What is ICE doing right now? That's oppression. What do you watch on TV right now? That's called oppression. Oppression is cruel, harsh, unjust treatment that you can't do shit about. So anytime you see black man get shot in the back by a white cop, what you gonna do? Nothing. How they make you feel? That's called oppression. But remember, it's exposure therapy. I got to expose your brain to this so that way you can learn to be helpless. Because, Negro, you was not born helpless. We got to train you, boy. I mean, not you personally, but you know. So we got to train Negroes to be helpless. So little Johnny got to be trained to be feminine. Because little Johnny was not born feminine, but he was trained to be feminine. That's why we take all the daddies out of the house. Because mamas can't raise, women cannot raise boys. A woman cannot raise a man, period, because she's not a man. Now, phallic females raise feminized males. Okay, I'm going to leave that one alone. Moving on. So this is by design, though. You ever seen the quarterback from Chicago? You see your boy, and I like, that Cam Newton. You ever see most NFL players now? Dudes big as a house. But look at their mannerisms. Feminine. Y'all think that's by accident? I mean, I'm asking for a friend. So, the inability to notice that's called pattern recognition. It's easy for me to see how most men under 30 are feminized. Now, that's some biological, there's food, there's water, there's a lot of reasons that assist. But we need to what? We need to implement strategies to assist the next generation. That's what I do for a living. I help men be men. If you men, you're supposed to be disciplined. You're supposed to be determined. That's going to create distance. That distance is going to be perceived especially by women, as disrespect. But that's okay, because what you're doing is creating direction so that way you can have dominion. Now, if you're a real man, I'm not talking about mama boys. If you're a real man, then you understand discipline is not like forcing yourself to do something. Discipline is an automatic expression of the soul. Because discipline gives you direction. That's another word for destiny, which is another word for diakonia. 7 Ds that override the current negative habit pattern. But most Negroes, most men don't have discipline because they don't have their destiny. They don't have their diakonia. They don't have something that drives them that they can't not do. See, discipline doesn't mean like, oh, you force yourself to do something. Nah, it's automatic, bro. It's like breathing. Try to hold your breath until you pass out. Your body will automatically force you to breathe. Don't believe me? Just try it. Just hold your breath until you click. Your body is going to say, breathe, Negro. The body is going to make you breathe. Okay, that's discipline. Because that gives you direction. So that way you can be, that way you're driven. You're going to create distance. You can't just hang out. You're going to separate yourself from everybody else. You're going to create distance. Now, it's going to come across as disrespect because you're going in a specific direction. So that way you can do what? That you're able to dominate. Because you're designed to dominate your area of expertise. Otherwise, you're going to be a slave to the dominant culture. That's what this is all about. Slavery. Spiritual slavery. But it's expressed physically. And what's in this Epstein? Now, they haven't got to the good stuff yet. They haven't got to the 7 S's yet. Yeah, they haven't got to that part. They haven't got to, they haven't got to this part yet. Yeah. That ain't came out yet. They haven't got to the demonic soul cord and the emotional cords. They haven't got to what witches, they tried that crap on me, but it didn't work. They want to make you their little bitch. And they dangle men. They use sex. Oh, yeah, come on. And then if you got a little sugar in your tank, they're going to come up with the 7 S's. The 7 seals of Satan. Oh, they're going to put it on you, bro. That's what this whole thing is about. The 7 seals of Satan. They want to seal your soul. And they do a good job of it. They got a whole cistern in place, bruh. They got this whole system set up. Who you think set this world up? Who's the God of this world that talks about in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4? He had deceived the whole world. Satan, that old dragon, who deceived the whole world. He took his ministers, he took his demons, and he turned them into ministers of righteousness. Oh, they got a plan. They got a plan, bro. I've been writing about this. I'm not glad, but in a way I am glad, because I was called a nut job and a conspiracy theorist by family and friends for years. So I'm kind of happy on one end that all this stuff is finally coming out, because all it does is just verifies what I've been saying since the 80s, man. I've been saying this shit since the 80s. And it's finally good to see it coming out. They haven't came out with the UFO disclosure stuff yet. You know, they haven't came out with all that. They still haven't came out with the coming autophagy or the coming apocalypse, why they're building whole cities underground. They still haven't came out with what happens every 25,950 years, that this is cyclical. There's so much information that they have not come out with because they're afraid that y'all Negroes going to flip out. And most people, black folk who's supposed to be saved, scared to death. Even though the Bible I read tells me God's not giving me a spirit of fear. He gave me a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. Why worry about what you shall eat or what you shall drink? That's what it says in the Bible that I read. So brothers, sisters, this was just a little glimpse into what I've been talking about for 30 years. That people are flipping out when they're reading this stuff in the Epstein files And this is, I got 1,000 books that break it down way better than what they're talking about. Because they don't tell you why they're doing this and why all of the governments of all the world is all doing the same thing. And they're going to scratch each other's back. So they just exposing 10% of what's really going on. So whatever you read in the Epstein files, that's just 10%, if that much, of what's really going on. So if you want to know what's really going on, pick up the 1,000 for 1,000. Man, I love y'all. Dr. Span, love you, Dr. Span. Everybody else, love you too. And then y'all can do about it. We're going to see at the top. Make sure you get the 1,000 for 1,000. Or $1 a day keeps low vibration away. Let's go.